go.
And we're back. Uh, so, another episode of the Tao Talk. I'm joined here with Petri, Kopiovastaava, the copy manager.
Sure.
And the topic today was published as Abstractions, Absolutes, and Entropy. Granted, we've both admitted that we could go way off on tangents and maybe not even talk about any of that, but um, Petri, why don't you, if you want, and feel free to introduce yourself and then take the topic wherever you want to go, man.
Sure. All right. Um, yeah, the topic that we decided that, well, we had a lot of topics that we were um, discussing what we want to talk about, but essentially from those topics, I picked one of the things that I'm writing about, and the whole topic is actually abstractions, absolutes, and entropy take joy out of life. And for an introduction, I don't think I have anything more to give than there is already in the kind of an introduction of this live show already. Um, but if you cheat, or if anyone just wants to ask, or wants me to be more precise about something, I will. I'll be able to open up a bit. But what I really wanted with this topic was that because I'm writing about these things, I'm writing what I think of as a is a book, but it's not really a physical book. I'm just writing things, and I have rules for the things that I'm writing about. Um, this, so to speak, book will be just something that I'll write and hopefully release just on an like an open source, uh, just public to everyone on web kind of a thing, and that and some a few other rules that I have are that I'll just I don't write about things that I think of. I'll only write about things that I'm having a discussion with other people. I'm mostly talking about the points that the other people make. I'm mostly talking about the things that the other people are saying, exclaiming, and obviously maybe through my own lens. But basically, the content of the things that I'm writing about is just what other people have said when they have had a discussion with me.
Hmm.
Um, and then there is the addition that I don't use AI at all. This is just human conversations about various topics. And what is the thing that is similar, that combines these topics in this, so to speak, book? I'm writing mostly about um, human condition, morality, things that are happening in nowadays politics, these kind of things, some more, some less abstract things. And I want to have few of the latter chapters in this book to be more about uh, happier things, more about things that give hope um, when we look into the future. And these topics, especially abstractions, absolutes, and entropy, take the joy out of life, is just one before that. I have other topics before it, then I have this one, and then just from that point on, I'll just write about things that are good, things that we can really look forward into.
Mm, mm.
And
Is
that's it. That's why I chose this topic.
mm. Is there going to be any of you in there?
Maybe I'm still thinking about if I want to do this thing where I just write the whole chapter, and then at the end of each chapter, I'll give my kind of like in one sentence or maybe in two sentences, I'll give my thoughts about the whole issue. Maybe I don't know,
Mm, mm. Why do
but
you
I
think
like
that
the
is?
idea. I like the idea that it's not about me. I'm writing about what the people that I've ever met
Mm,
feel about the things that are going on in their lives, things that are going on in the global politics, everything.
mm. Do you think you'll ever write about yourself in other than this outlet?
Hopefully not.
No, why
Hopefully
not?
not.
Why not?
Why would I?
I mean, some people do. So it's on the spectrum. You don't have to, of course, but
Yep.
what is it about you that makes you not feel like or want to or desire to write about yourself, but more about your experiences with others?
Very good question. I'm not writing about my personal philosophy, but in my personal philosophy, I am very, very heavily against ego,
Mm,
and
mm.
that's the core reason right there.
Interesting. Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Uh, Multiple reasons. One of the prominent one is my influence with the Far Eastern philosophies,
Mm,
their culture, and that's actually something that I would kind of want to open a bit about.
mm,
Um, yeah, I can say this kind of like a short thing here. It'll take me like a minute or two
Take your time, man. This is all about
if
you.
you
You
want to.
say what you need to
All
say.
right, all right. So related to what I just said, um, uh, I kind of already started, but this one thing that I wanted to say, what I wanted to kind of maybe not start with, but just mention, uh, um, I want to name maybe not all of the things, but some things that bring joy to my life. And one of these things are is the study of history of words, the etymological things, and very much related to entropy and abstraction is the old Sanskrit word of something that describes emptiness, vacuous, something that is devoid of matter. And this Sanskrit word is phonetically pronounced something like, I'm not sure if I'm able to do it correctly, but I think it's something close to sunya. And throughout the history, that word, that Sanskrit word of maybe something like 10 or 8,000 years ago, or slightly less, something around there, this word has stemmed out the word zero in English language. And um, then the history of this word, zero, comes from the French zero, which is a contraction of the Venetian zevero, Italian zefiro, Latin Tephirum, and Greek Zephyrus, which is then from Arabic Sifr. And this Sifr is already very close to the more original Sunya. And interestingly, this the concept of zero came into the mathematics from these uh, for the Western people of nowadays. It came from Arabia, but to Arabians, it came from the ancient Hindu people, uh, from their religious and philosophical concepts of nothingness. Of these nothingness thoughts and concepts, uh, a lot of modern day philosophy, the number zero in mathematics, and a lot of other things come from those ideas, those concepts. And these things, etymological things, are something that have a great interest
Mm,
for me.
mm, mm, mm. Interesting. Well, you know me. I mean, nihilism is something that heavily influences my life, but that's merely a westernized interpretation of something that might be older and representing the same philosophies of nothingness, null, zero, whatever the thing, the absence of a thing. Let me ask you a question. Like me personally, when I think about that, this is a concept that probably has been around prior to us even having language, right? Because
Mm,
a primitive creature can be holding a thing in their hand and know that they have a thing. They don't, it doesn't matter what they call that thing. They call it ugh or maybe they don't call it anything. Maybe they just identify it. When it's gone, there's a lack of that thing. And the lack of that thing has an identifiable notion that I think is ubiquitous. It's just a matter of getting to a point of putting words to it and now trying to apply logic to it. How does it apply to everything else? Is there a thing that is real nothingness? Like, does true nothingness, nullness, voidness, absence of thing exist? Is that a real thing, or is that
mm,
just something we're trying to define in some way, shape, or form, meaning the absence of thing or absence of stuff? That kind of
mm.
goes into abstractions, doesn't it? Um,
Sure does. Sure does. Um, hmm, multiple points there, multiple ways we can continue the conversation from there. Mm, one of the probably notable mentions there is that for a long time in history, in the so to speak Western history of mathematics and whatever it meant before that, there was not this concept of nothingness, concept of zero. So it didn't make sense to count things that, or even mention that if you had something, if you had your rock or your pet sheep or whatever, when it's gone, it's gone. Not you don't count the zero there. You just don't have anything. So the concept was probably something that people had. They probably had the concept, but very often in these stories of of national epics, folk stories, whatever, this kind of a nothingness is usually depicted as something that is uh, outside of this world or at the edge of this world or something where people go to when they die or something where people come to this realm of being when they are born, maybe both, maybe something slightly different, but that's usually the when we talk about the time period before the invention of Latin numeral zero. That used to be it. There didn't used to be a concept of zero items or zero whatever. The nothingness was just something beyond, something where everything is born of, for
Yeah.
example.
That seems like it would blend into kind of the history of linguistics to me. Like linguistics definitely seems to have a positive notion to it, like identifying things, categorizing things. It has to be a thing in order to identify it and categorize it, you know. But not that that exists,
Yes.
that concept of a thing not existing isn't there. A primatology example comes up to me about macaque monkeys when they were feeding them different things and like they'd give them a reward system, do this thing and I give you a grape, right? Give two macaque monkeys a grape. Do this thing, give them a grape. And then all of a sudden, one guy gets a grape and the other guy doesn't get a grape. He gets like a piece of broccoli or something and he's unhappy about that because he doesn't
Yes.
have a grape.
Yes.
What is that absence of representation there? But anyways, I think I'm probably diverging way back in more than we need to go, but progressing forward, then we talk about like
Mm,
the ancient philosophers that talked about nulls and zeros and stuff. So yeah, I think it's probably one of those things that we can't separate. It's a non-dualism there that says null or the lack of something probably always existed. Whether we kind of overtly gave it a system or a pattern or a set of
mm,
linguistics to name it is
mm.
another question, because usually life is based on like what you're getting, not what you're not getting. you, you know,
Usually.
I think
Yes.
that there's a
Yeah.
sense there of logic.
Yeah.
Um, but that
Yeah.
devolves
Absolutely.
into abstractions and everything. And I think what I was telling Rev earlier today is that I think all language is an abstraction,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Wouldn't you
Yes.
agree?
I would agree to a
Yeah.
point. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So,
Well, uh, mm, like you said, this is the point that we can choose our tangent in this topic. And I have a few that I've already thought of in beforehand that I would be probably willing to talk about and maybe just figure out if we want to talk about one or more of these topics more about. Um, I have a very short thing about if we want to delve more into this history of words, history of languages thing
mm-hmm.
uh, of Finnish language, because I'm a person from Finland and I know a bit about the history of languages because it's a kind of like a hobby for me. And then I can just list these things very quickly here. We could probably talk about philosophy, psychology, maths, physics, maybe something else. In philosophy, we could probably talk about the absolutes used in claims, used in stances, or just debates in general. Just the the kind of use of absolutes, or well, uh, I don't say anything more about that just yet. In philosophy, we could talk about the abstractions in logic, how they are useful, how they are used in philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Then we could talk about psychology and need of self-expressions. In mathematics, we could talk about the abstraction in logic, similar to philosophy. Logic is something that is shared in maths and philosophy. Uh, we could talk about axiom of choice. That's a that's an interesting
Mm-hmm.
could be a very deep topic. Could be a very weird topic for many people.
Mm-hmm.
Also in physics, I have three listed topics here that we could talk about the just entropy in general, then kind of like a difficult topic. We don't have to go through it in a difficult way, but in quantum mechanics there is this thing called well, separating the implicate and eps, uh, eps, explicit order,
Explicit. Yeah.
whatever that means,
Yeah. Mm.
just as words. I know something about it. But then the last one would be in physics still, that the very few things in universe seem to be absolute,
Mm-hmm.
and it's somewhat easy to make a claim that there are actually none,
Mm, mm, mm.
no absolute things in physics.
I would agree with
That
that.
that.
But we could talk
Mm-hmm.
about that. Anything, the thing that caught my brain because I just had a show on my own pet thesis of logical selection is logic.
Yeah,
And I had a
yeah,
question for you
yeah.
because,
Sure.
well, I'm not even going to preface this, but the question is logic fundamental?
Is logic fundamental? Okay. My first response is not to answer, but to ask, what do you mean by that? How do you
Good
define
question. That's a
fundamental?
that's a good question because obviously nothing is fundamental necessarily, but fundamental by consistency, by what we understand by the best measurement systems we know, like physics and mathematics, and you
Yes.
know, um,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll try to answer. Let's see what we can come up with. Um, in mathematics, for let's say for at least 1800 years, maybe more than 2000, maybe something like 4000 years ago. Uh, mm, we used to do this thing. We used to be more of geometrical oriented. We used to do mathematics with a piece of string and something that we draw something at the end of that string, and
or tie a knot,
sorry.
or tie a knot. I mean, there were lots, yeah,
Yeah.
lots of different mechanisms that emerged. Yeah. Hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
The underlying thing there is that we used to do mathematics with the most simple tools that we can come up with,
Hmm.
and that kind of what was by design, kind of by accident, and during the ancient times that was something that people used to do. They used to prove that, and not just to prove, there was this kind of a pre-assumption there that mathematics should be done in such a way that we imagine, we focus on the things that we can think of that describe everything in mathematics by their most simple ways, for example. And these tools, just compass and a piece of string, this kind of a setup was what ancient Greeks very famously used to prove a lot of ancient mathematics. Why is that important? It is because that's what they did. Uh, geometric, uh, geometrical mathematics was everything to these people. What they proved were mostly geometrical things. These things stem from problems from everyday life. How do we divide this piece of land between two people? How do we divide this piece of farmland
How far is it to
equally
get to a
between,
place? Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, these kind of things, and even a lot more complex things. three-dimensional, and if we go more and more into these mathematics of these things and get more and more complex, um, there are some interesting things where people were able to use their language in order to describe some things. Most of the time, they used actual physical objects, and they looked at the objects and kind of made like an um, they just figured out an estimate that I have this physical object, a sphere here, and something else, and I'm able to calculate this thing slightly, something like this, and this was just a method, a tool that 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 was used very often. But at the same time, there were some problems which were just limited by the language or the tools, sometimes both. And this is the thing that gets us to the almost modern day mathematics and logic, and why, especially why it was such um, a needed thing, a precise thing that the is it the 1700s? But mm, let's say that logic became more and more prevalent after the Renaissance and throughout the Age of Enlightenment. And after that time, people figured out that our language is the thing that is actually restricting us the most in logic. And people who were um, well aware of this thing, but were not mathematicians, asked mathematicians to help with this problem. And what came out of this thing was that famously, this is a very long proof of multiple pages, probably a couple of hundred, but it takes multiple, I think it takes tens of pages for these mathematicians to prove that actually 1 plus 1 really equals 2. There are some very deep mathematics of why that is, what they did, but they had to go and had to take a kind of like a new way of looking at mathematics, looking at numbers, and to create this new set theory in mathematics in order for logic to exist, in order for logic to be better in language. This was necessary. And then the language borrowed this thing from mathematics. And that's a long answer to your question.
Mm, mm, mm. Well, not a long answer. I agree with all of it. I might add a couple things. Like one, I think scale and magnitude is super important over history, right?
Hmm.
If you just look at purely scale, the way we understood things were very local and like we were, trying to say like this is the size of this thing, these angles equal the size and these things, and they're very simple kind of geometry. And as you progress, you got into like more three-dimensional geometry, like Euclidean
Yes.
geometry. And then you progressed in time, and then you're like, well, there's other things beyond this geometry because if you grow to this size, this geometry no longer matches up.
Yes.
How we kind of found out that the world is round at that point. We're like, if this is good within this range and we hit an approximate area, but when we expand to the global territory, we can now see that the trajectories change with other factors that we're not aware of, like gravity and yada yada yada. Then Newtonian physics and
Mm.
calculus evolved, and I think at that same time, we're also compartmentalizing logical features away, like disambiguating something that maps directly to reality versus something that can map solely to information or logic. So we're
Yeah.
kind of we're starting small, we're growing big, and then we're kind of disambiguating and moving larger. And now, so that's kind of an evolution of that process. Now, The only other thing I would say is that that I would add to that is logic is fundamental in my opinion. Fundamental as
Mm,
fundamental thing as
yeah.
things go. You could look at the cellular level and the channels in which certain electrical and biochemical things pass in and out of them. Those are called ion channels. They're gates, essentially. They're logic gates, is what they call them. So logic has existed since like life and chemistry and all these things have, we know logically these two things combine because of their positive and negative, you know, um, and I think this is an ambiguation that people make a lot is that logic is now compressed into just a thing that humans made and humans do rather than it being something that is calculable to the universe free of agency, free of what we would call agency. So those would be the
Yes.
two big factors of logic that I would disambiguate there. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I would be willing to say that logic probably is fundamental, and humans have discovered logic to some extent and also created some new logic to a greater extent.
yeah,
And it's a similar thing with the question that mathematicians usually get to answer, which is that is mathematics created or discovered? And I think it's both. Like logic,
yeah,
I think it's both.
yeah. I mean that. So that goes like, look, it's hard to dismiss that. If all right, we've been past the solipsism thing, you and me. We accept there's a reality in which we engage with on an everyday basis. Beyond that, we have these consistencies, right? And these consistencies um, have mathematical truths to them.
Mhm. If you want
Mathematical
to.
facts that we can say they map very easily and consistently, like another alien force across the universe. If they discover the same things, they might have a different language, but they're going to be describing a lot of the same fundamental components in order to be able to traverse our universe. Um, so yeah, I
If
agree
you
with you.
care.
I agree with you.
Mm,
There
mm.
is here's the yeah. Then we hit a philosophical problem, but I have to pee again, and I'm gonna so give me 2 seconds. Rev, why don't you come up here and talk if you want to talk? I don't know if you can or not. But drinking beer, this is going to be a regular thing for me. I'm going to have to take regular pee breaks. I'm an old man with a shitty prostate. Oh, all right. Take care, man. Love you, man. Have a good day. But I will be right back. All right. I don't know how I'm doing this, but I'm maintaining my frame of thought in from when I left to now where I'm coming back. So I was going to say from here, like that walks into the philosophical concept of mind independence, right? Um, I don't know if you want to go that direction or if you want to keep talking about logic or.
I don't really care. I'm willing to talk about anything.
Mm, mm, mm. So why this goes into mind independence is because it does seem that there is this reality, this thing that we're reaching towards, but yet we still never seem to quite attain, right? This fundamentality to the universe that always seems to taper off into some sort of what they call an asymptotic value mathematically. We hit these bottoms
Yeah,
where we just keep mathematically, and our mathematics blow up at some point in time, and we have to draw a line and say, well, this is where we stop. I think the deepest parts are like Planck time and Planck space, and all those things at this point are like where our mathematics break down. Um, so
correct.
the question is, if minds didn't exist, no minds existed, would there still be a reality? Right? And
That
not only
is a
not only
question.
not only if minds didn't exist, would there still be a reality? But even if there were, would it matter? Because there's no mind for it there to give a shit about it anyway, right?
Um, if there ever was a loaded question, Uh, yeah. What does it mean to matter? What does it mean to matter for a mind? Mm, I'm not sure if we are able to ever, as human species, to figure out the answers to these questions. Um, so many other things. Hmm. Um, One of the worthwhile things to mention is that we are not able to know currently, maybe never, if this logic that we are supposedly just figuring out, just discovering, and by some portion creating, by this logic that we are creating and discovering, we might never be able to know that that if that's the system that is the one that is able to describe the reality, describing what is real, describing whatever most most precisely, or if that's even the goal. That usually is the goal. That at least in science, in physics, and well, science in general, we want to understand reality, the things, whatever we are. Um, yeah, the truth. Yeah, yeah. That's typically where we end up. We end up things um, like you are writing in the chat. It's where the truth and reality meet. Yes, not always, but thankfully,
Well, that we know of
most
yet.
often that's the case.
Yeah, that we know of yet. Like, I think if there were a truth where reality and truth met, there'd be no dismissing it,
Yes,
right?
but but that's the that was already an almost impossible question about the reality and some other things related. What you just asked. This is even a tougher question. What is truth? What is true?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a more difficult question.
Yeah, not for me. I'm a nihilist. There is no truth. Truth is
Right.
relative. Truth is what well, for me, it's what we find most consistent, which is evidence. That's what I base things on. But
Mm,
even understanding that that evidence is on unstable footing and unstable grounding. But then again, I'm a pragmatist, so I have to default to what is best. What is best is what we observe in this reality that we see and the consistency. And the best things to measure those things are those mathematics and those physics that tell us what those
mm,
consistent responses are.
mm,
So that's my grounding. My grounding is knowing that
mm,
there's no ground, but that we have to make our ground to build on. So I choose what I believe is the best ground to build on. Does that make
mm,
sense?
mm. Yeah, sure it does. And also it kind of sounds like that you are what is it? Fallibilistic, someone who is willing to say that they are fallible in their beliefs.
Hmm.
That, yeah, all right.
Well,
But
to
yeah,
the nth degree, like
yes,
to the nth degree,
yes.
like there is nothing that can't be questioned. Period. It's not that we don't
Mm,
have consistencies and like, look, I live my life on a regular basis. I do just fine. Somehow I've managed well for myself. I don't know how that worked out. Maybe that was just happenstance. Um, I still make quite good judgments, knowing that there is no ultimate truth, right? There is no ultimate guidance. There's no right or wrong. There's no yes or no. There's just every action. There is some form of other, even though it's entropic, it's some form of reaction on the other side. If it's entropic, ultimately, that might lead into entropy. But let me ask you a question, Casey, along the lines of your question. So does 1 plus 1 necessarily equal 2? Let me ask you a question. Let's start at the top. What do we know of that is one solid thing that we can devise into other things, but it's the biggest thing that it would be the universe, right? That's one, right? That's one universe. We have one universe that we know of. Does that make sense? I'm just starting at a top point so I can kind of make a point here. Mm-hmm. All right. So what can you divide one thing into? What's like one of the first things you can divide one thing into? Two things, right? If you put those two things back together, you got one thing, right? Does that make sense? This is one reason why people fall into this notion that mathematics are fundamental. No, how we see, visualize, represent things is kind of what we're doing. It's not fundamental. It's just anything can have an abstract notion of itself, one thing, and anything that is one thing can be divided into two things. And if you take all the equal parts of those two things and put them back together, you can put them back into one thing. Are there other systems of representation that would blend that where one and one don't necessarily equal two? Sure. Absolutely. No, unquestionably. Systems that would deal in infinites would not necessarily have a 1 plus 1 equals 2 because there wouldn't be a one thing. It would be an infinity. It would be some form of I don't know, bell curve, or like you like to call a sigmoid curve, into something that kind of abstracts into a thing but isn't a thing in and of itself. And there could be like gradients of that thing beyond itself that if you add enough of them together by some system, it might equal 3 or 5. Or,
Non-variance.
then you have bases where you could have different bases levels of number. So, and here's the other thing. This is the thing that I think is one of my best illustrations is we have a measurement system. For instance, in the United States, we use what calls the imperial system, and you have inches, we have foot, we have yard, yada yada yada. Those things could necessarily have over time been infinitely sized. They could be any scale and be named those
Yeah.
things.
Yes.
So we could literally have infinite measurement systems. We just chose that one.
Yes, we did.
And that one's the one that got adopted and used a lot. And then somehow passed over to here, and then everybody else adopted the metric system. I don't know how the fuck that happened, but that's just how history seems to work.
I know about that history, but
So,
let's go.
yeah.
Let's not go there.
Yeah. But
That that
anyways,
that that's a rabbit hole.
I've talked a lot. Petri, you talk.
Um, Maybe I wanna continue with the question Casey asked in the chat. That so 1 plus 1 doesn't necessarily equal 2. Well, yeah, like you already answered, and I kind of tried to limit myself of not going into that rabbit hole too far. Uh, yeah, that is essentially what that means, and that is why these people in the is it 1700s or maybe later than that, they already recognized that the language was just not precise. The logic in language was not precise enough. But at the same time, a different kind of a problem in mathematics arose, that we actually need to know what we are talking about. We need to be able to show our work. We need to show how we mean what 1 plus 1 equals. And there was a completely a new a field of mathematics that was born from this thing, and it was set theory. And in this set theory, that's basically what the can't remember from the top of my head, but tens of pages in this one book where uh, they started to describe this new field of mathematics, the set theory. It took them many pages of logic to just state that yes, actually 1 plus 1 equals 2. What it means that you're not able to break the integer number 1. Yeah, you can divide it by 2 and you get 1/2. But if you're talking about whole things, if you're talking about uh, counting days in a month, counting your sheep that you have on your farm, whatever, you don't have half a sheep, you don't have half a day. Technically, you can. Technically, they are things that exist. But when you are talking about whole things, integers, you can only have the one of something, and that's the least that you can have. And it took so much language of logic in mathematics to just prove that you can have a thing and another thing, and that's that combination means that you have two things of the same kind. Um, but then your question: does it necessarily mean that they equal two? That the answer to that question is in that logic. Yes, inside that logic, it always necessarily equals to integer two. But maybe we are wrong about that. Maybe we are wrong about all of our logic, all of our mathematics, all of our language in that matter. Maybe we are wrong. But currently, we have the history before that time. We just took it for granted that when we count the days that we go to sleep and we wake up, we just tally it up. We just mark it up. We scratch something on a wood, and then tomorrow we look at our wood and we remember that okay, we have tallied, we have marked, scratched the surface of this wood one time before, so today we do it again. And we just count things that in mathematics this kind of a behavior is known as counting numbers, and they are integers. There are numbers that are inside other number systems. And we used to take all of that granted, but later we figured out that we can't do that. We have to have a precise language here in what we really mean. And that's the history of the Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory of mathematics. There are a lot more interesting mathematics beyond there, but that is a rabbit hole again.
Yeah.
We can go there, but we can talk about anything related.
Well, something you mentioned before was axiom of choice. An axiom of choice melds
Yes.
right into set theory, right? Axiom of choice basically says you have some option within a certain set. An option exists within a certain set in which you will choose, basically, right? And this is fundamental as things get. At every moment, we have a set of options of which we choose an option in an option to do and move forward. Not absolutely, because it's a blend. Like at every moment, we're making an option within the axiom of choice, right? In our own actions, there's no like division line between one choice and a next, except for the ones that we can categorize in our brains, like the maximal ones, like I'm gonna get up. That's a maximum
That,
quantification of like an axiom of choice.
mm,
I could either stay here or get up. That's a set,
mm,
right? And we're making a
mm,
choice in that set, right? These are
yeah,
abstract choices. Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
yes.
set theory is super important. I don't think most people think of their lives at every moment of sets of choices, but it really could
Mm,
be, it could literally be like boiled down to that. Um, Go ahead.
mm. Yeah, related to what you just said and to what Casey asked in two previous questions on the chat, that is it possible that the concept of a zero, uh, no, the zero is just a concept and that it may not exist. Like, for example, you are just counting sheep, and if you have no sheep, you have no sheep. What would it mean that you have negative sheep? Or, uh, as in the example, if someone stole your sheep, you maybe had three sheep. If someone steals one of your sheep, you now have two sheep. But if someone then steals the rest of your sheep, the two sheep, you will have none. But the thing that is the common factor in all of these three things that I've mentioned here is memory. We can remember that you used to have sheep, and that's the difference. If we count the days, we can remember that, yeah, I woke up yesterday and I was the one who made this counting of the day before. So memory and the passage of time is a key factor there. It could be something else, but typically in these cases that we just we have a situation and it's somehow changed. We have a memory of the previous state, and yeah, sure, zero might not exist, but in theories, it kind of does exist because if we started counting the days today, this would be the first day. Tomorrow would be the second day. We remember today as the first day, but maybe there was something before that. Maybe there was the 0th day, or we used to have some sheep, and we remember that we had the sheep, but now we don't. We now have zero sheep, or even before that, before we used to have sheep, we didn't. We maybe bought the sheep.
Or maybe I owe
So,
someone sheep, so that's negative sheep.
right, right.
Yeah. And
It's
so
a
I
concept,
I want to bring up the notion of quantum physics as well. Like at the deepest
right?
roots of what we understand things, beyond certain points, we just don't understand. We don't know if that's nothing. Things seem to emerge out of nothing.
Yes,
So, how do we define that without having a concept of what we don't know or nothingness or the absolute, it seems that life has this counterpart, like the presence of something and the absence of something, and anywhere in between.
yes,
This would be an equilibrium as well. Now, it depends on how you scale that equilibrium. You can scale an equilibrium in the positive, but if you do it like most people do, you have a zero, and then you have the perturbations of that zero, like a sine wave or a sigmoid curve or whatever you want to call it. There's a point where there's nothing imposing a positive or a negative effect. So zero is almost, or negative or nothing is almost a ubiquitous notion because it is this factor. The biggest factor to me is what we don't know. Because what we don't know about our universe could be infinite. What we do know, we know is finite. So therefore, how
yes.
can we be so egotistical about what we know versus what we don't know?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, sure, yes. And um, uh, probably a worthwhile notion to mention is that even though by our most precise tools and with our most advanced theories, we have looked into and we have made measurements of the nothingness, so to speak. We have measured the outer space vacuum, or at least the conditions in that vacuum, and it somehow seems like that kind of a thing doesn't really exist. It seems like that there is this nothingness, that it doesn't exist. When we look at the void, the vacuum, we can always somehow see some kind of vibration or some energy. Nowadays, we call it the vacuum energy, and that's just the extent of our understanding of physics, of quantum physics, and it goes even beyond that nowadays. But that is an important notice, I think, because we think that we are looking at nothingness, but actually we just find out that that is not nothingness. There is still something there.
Mm, mm. Well, yeah, in vacuum of outer space, yes, I think the vacuum of outer space is defined by the number of potential particles within that space in a square area, square divided area, right? But then you're going into the quantum realm, of which I think the deepest we understand is where we might think there's some sort of a quantum energetic field with a minimal energetic force or something. But beyond that, we have no idea what creates that energetic force, right? What creates the quantum foam in order to spawn the particles that then create the matter and antimatter and have this somehow, which I think we do have an explanation why there's an imbalance as far as antimatter and matter that annihilates and cancels out within the bubble of what we experience of the macroscopic universe. Um, we don't know what are beyond those points. Is that nothing? And you know
Mm,
what? Here's the thing, that's inside you, man. It's inside me. It's inside every cell. It's inside every aspect of us, right?
yeah.
I don't know. I personally can't say it's nothing. I also can't say it's something.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
that's the
Multiple
deepest.
things.
That's the deepest understanding of nothing to me. So.
Mm, multiple things there. Multiple topics. Very difficult physics there.
Mhm.
Extremely difficult physics
Yeah,
there.
stuff I don't do the math for. So fair enough.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of things,
Mm,
and we didn't even define what those things are.
mm.
Thankfully, we kind of don't have to, because a lot of it is just very advanced
Very
nowadays.
theoretical. Yes. Yes.
Of
Yes.
theoretical physics, and some most of it is actually 100 years old or so, and but the concepts, the whether or not actual emptiness, actual void, actual vacuum exists, that's a thing. We don't know that yet. We have looked and we have thought that this is a vacuum, but somehow there still seems to be some kind of energy there. So maybe we are just not precise enough. We need to be more precise.
Right. So that's that intangible reality, that thing that we seem to be working towards touching and feeling and being able to experience every aspect of and predict every aspect of, but we're just not quite there yet. And the more we kind of
Mm,
blend into it, the more we blend into uh, those asymptotic mathematical values. These
Mm.
asymptotic mathematical values that mean absolutely zero to most people's daily lives. you know,
Yeah, like,
Defining things at such deep levels within us, including within us in our brains and our minds and everything we are,
mm.
yet really predict not much of anything about what goes on in our daily lives beyond the macroscopic
So,
physical effects.
mm, yeah, right. Um, what do you think? Should we kind of have? Should we kind of try to? It might be impossible. It might not make any sense. But should we kind of try to wrap out of whatever we just had and maybe continue on the voice channel here, or do you want to delve into these topics even more?
Honestly, this is about you, man. Let's do what you want to do. Um, I'm trying to be
Um,
more engaging than I used to be. Anyways, where do you want to take it?
um, doesn't matter to me, um, because this is a very deep topic. There are so many tangents that we can choose.
Mm,
I have all just I've written down some things that we could talk about, and I know there are multiple more.
mm,
I'm not even sure how many of them are topics that I want to write about,
mm.
but I know I want to write about many of them.
Well, let me
But the
roll
kind
back.
of
Let me roll back a little bit
huh?
and ask you the question: what do you have anything in mind of what you want to accomplish with this book?
Hmm, that's a good question. Maybe what I want to answer before that is kind of what I wanted to maybe take the conversation to, would be that what I want to what I want to write about, what I want to do with this topic only, this one maybe chapter of a topic, abstractions, absolutes, and entropy, take the joy out of life. What do I mean by that? What do I want to do with that? Well, for me, it's a kind of a simple thing. I want to point out the somewhat obvious thing that this is the case. Most of the people who just stop and think about this topic for a minute, it is very obvious that yeah, this is the case. If we just do abstractions all day, if we have just absolute claims, if all of our claims are absolute and we are never willing to even consider anything else, and if we let entropy take control, if we let chaos take control and just do nothing, it's going to be miserable. Our lives are the enjoyment of things is gone. Even I think abstractions, they are very useful. uh, Probably most of the people, they might not realize it, but they use this kind of like a um, maybe a logic based behavior in some of the things, partially in their everyday life. Some people use it more, some people less, but definitely the more they abstract their everyday life, their everyday conversations with people, if they use more and more abstract language, it's gonna sound more and more miserable. And that's the thing. That's the kind of the ending part of this chapter that I want to write about is about how we can be more aware of this, how we can do something else. Yeah, we can use logic in our everyday life. It's useful. Abstractions are very useful in logic. Absolutes are something that they are very useful in philosophical definitions where you scrutinize something, where you use some kind of like a satirical take on something. You take something to its absurd extreme. They are useful in these senses. But if that's the only thing that you'll do, if that's the only thing that you will ever do in your everyday life, it's going to be miserable. And the actual things that we usually enjoy, they are the stories, they are the things that happen to people, they are just simple things in our everyday life without any abstractions.
Mm.
And that's what I want to write about in this chapter. This I can just name two things, for example, here of what I would consider something like parting words, words from the author or something. And these are already uh, some some things that people usually take for granted, or some things that they think that are just kind of obvious. But I want to mention them here because maybe we can just continue a bit about why they are so obvious. What is it obvious about them?
Mm.
And the two things are um, fighting against entropy can be thought of as a losing battle worth fighting for. There are a couple of things in that sentence.
Mm. Mm.
And the other one is that it takes time, effort, and energy to do things, but there are definitely things that are worth of it. These two things are more about entropy and more about just mm, more about these kind of life choices, everyday behavioral choices that we can have, uh, that it really takes our time, effort, and energy to do something worthwhile, to do something that we really enjoy. That's the kind of message that I want to write about at the end of this chapter.
Mm.
But do I then want to answer or even try to answer what I want to try to accomplish with this book? I'm not sure. I'm not even sure if there is any goal, if there is anything that I want to accomplish with. Maybe uh, at bare minimum, I just had this idea that I want to write about the things that people are thinking about in their everyday lives and have this kind of a common theme in the chapters, and I want to write about this common theme. There are multiple, but few of these themes are just mm, conditions that humankind is living nowadays in geopolitics. Well, maybe not politics, but mm, politics are a huge part of that. and I want to write about mm, morality. I want to write about um, mm, the I want to write about the conditions. I want to write about the feelings that nowadays people have in their modern life. That's why I chose this kind of approach in writing with this, so to speak, book. That I'm not choosing the things that I write about. I'm just writing about the things that I have discussions with other people. Sure, maybe through my lens of the things that I want to write about, but that's the whole thing. I'm
Well,
writing about the topics that people are talking about that seem to be important to other people,
mm,
and I'm just trying to figure out the common themes. I want to figure out the common goals, common fears, common history that are the themes behind these words, behind these discussions, and these have become the chapters in this book that I'm writing about.
mm. Do you think you want to figure that out for you or for other people?
Mm, is there some other ulterior motive, some other ulterior goal? I don't think so. At least I don't have anything that I can mention from the top of my head that I have thought of that
Mm,
I might have. So the long answer is no. I don't have a goal with my book.
mm, 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 mm. Yeah, I guess my question was, I get it's and it seems like it's more for everyone else than it is for you. It's more like, just
Yes,
information, Here's information. Take it for
to
what it is and
convey
do with it as you
information.
will. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I guess I'm kind of very similar in that sense. Like I'm past the point that my opinion, that my ideas, that my interpretations, that my understandings mean much, but that maybe that might give someone some more perspective. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. So a collection of interactions, maybe.
Yeah.
A series of unfortunate events, right?
Why do you call them unfortunate?
Well, no, that's a book. It's called Lemony Snicket's called a series of unfortunate events or something like that. It's just a
Right.
joke.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm very similar. I want to write too. I don't know how. I've been trying to figure it out for a long time, and I'm really not sure. I don't want to leave a legacy because it's not kind of what I'm about. Um, yeah, maybe just for more information and more understanding if anybody cares. If they don't, oh well, you know. Part of
Hmm.
part of my attitude behind this social media is you know, so far it seems not many people give a crap. Um, but that's all right. Maybe it's important to someone. If I'm important to at least one person and it changes them. And as far as the ultimate question I think you asked, which is like, can we actually do anything about the human tragedy?
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if there's an answer there. For me, it seems like it's going to play itself out one way or the other, but there are some overt truths that seem to be evident about the future, and it's going to be a lot more full with tragedy. Um, some people might have good
Well,
experiences through it, maybe others won't. Maybe we'll go back to
yeah.
romantic eras where we've got more Romeo and Juliet's emerging. Who knows? Some
mm,
people even say we need to go through these times in order to have these levels of creativity. If we didn't go through strife and human suffering, that we wouldn't have these beautiful arts and crafts. They wouldn't emerge because we
mm,
wouldn't have the feelings that make them
mm.
emerge. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe is what I say too. Like from my perspective, yeah, I don't know. I don't even want to give my perspective. What's your perspective?
Um,
I gotta tell you, man.
I'm
Since you showed me younger pictures of you earlier today, I can't stop picturing you as your younger self with just a beard overlaid. So it's like it's a pretty interesting
okay.
phenomenon. But
All
yeah, go
right.
ahead. Anyways, about the what we were just talking about.
Mm. I'm I'm ever optimistic about things. I'm always looking for the best possible outcome. I'm always looking for the um, best parts i- in in everyday social actions. That's just me. That's just what I do. I'm huh. So can I say anything more about that? Mm, maybe I am not sure if I want to, or if that is actually really not the topic of what I'm writing in this chapter in this book, and it's not the topic that I wanted to talk about today.
Okay, well,
So
yeah,
maybe no.
go whatever direction you want to go with it, man.
Mm, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if what we have already talked about today is like enough of this topic, or if we want to continue, maybe it would be uh, well, it can be, and it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing or something that I didn't want to talk about. It could be a tangent of something, but I'm just trying to figure out if this is enough of this for today. And if we want, we could probably talk about some tangent, any tangent or something completely different afterwards.
Mm. I mean, I'm open for anything. I think we've been doing all right so far, dragging it along. I don't know how in depth you want to
Right?
go into your book and stuff, because that's your venture that you're still working on, and
Mm,
maybe you haven't formalized it or anything. But of course,
no.
we've been round and round on topics of different areas: philosophical, mathematical, social,
Yeah.
psychological. So I'm willing to go anywhere you want with this, man.
Yeah. I like I said earlier, I wrote down just a couple of topics on in philosophy, psychology, maths, and physics, and I would be willing to talk about any of the things that I listed earlier. And we have talked about the um, axiom of choice very, very briefly, but
Mm-hmm.
we talked about abstractions in logic, in philosophy, and in maths very briefly. There is still a lot more there,
Sure.
and and if we just exclude these things, maybe we still keep the axiom of choice. We would have one, two, three, four, five, six topics that I've written down. And I know for a fact that there are a lot of others still,
Sure.
if we want to go there.
Sure. Well, what interests you in that realm? Bring it on, man. Come on.
Hmm.
Do you want to go into so where do you want to go with this? Like axiom of choice also often is the area where I think people start to make the ambiguation of free will from choice.
That's one thing.
right?
That's
But
one big thing.
that's a philosophical notion of that we have some seemingly ethereal choice in the matter, um,
Mm,
gives leeway for some sort of agency, you know.
yeah, sure. Um, Maybe even if we didn't go into this topic, it is worth mentioning that what is the axiom of choice for layperson
Mm,
outside of mathematics? Very, very simplistically, it means that if you have a choice on anything, maybe let's give an example here that instead of rolling a typical die, which is a six-sided die, you get to choose a number between 1 and 6. You don't have to roll a die, you get to choose. What the axiom of choice is really about is that something, or the word thing might be wrong there, but we usually use this language there that something is able to choose any of those things. Well, in our everyday practical everyday life, that means that you are able to choose either number one, number two, three, four, five, or the number six. You are able to do that. But actually, the axiom of choice is even something greater. It means something like whatever you can think of, whatever the choices that you can ever have. Axiom of choice is something that is common in all of these. It means something that something is able to choose. Um, it depends on. In my example, I said you are able to choose a number. You are able to choose one number of between 1 and 6. Maybe you were supposed to choose two numbers or five numbers or whatever. You that's the we are getting more and more to the extent of this axiom. It basically just means this ability to choose whatever you want. And that's where the free will take from the psychology and philosophy is, well, nowadays in math and physics as well. The notion of free will is not prevalent, but it's a kind of a hot topic,
smuggled.
to say the least.
That's what I would call it, smuggled.
Yes,
It's
yes,
smuggled in because it's not
yes,
disambiguated properly, right? Like the axiom of choice exists prior to human cognition. It exists prior to life cognition. It exists fundamentally, mathematically, that if you have a set of choices, if there is a set of choices and there are pressures that align those set of choices, those something in that choice is going to happen depending on a bunch of different factors, which are choices in and of themselves. They are sets of choices in and of themselves. Um,
mm,
and it's not an agentic thing, it's a logical thing, it's an informational thing. It's
yes,
like you have a set, anything can be. Here's the question I have, though. The question I have is what can't be chosen? What set do you know of? Is there a thing that cannot be chosen out of the set? I know
yeah,
one. I know one thing that
yeah,
we cannot choose in and of a single set, that one of the options in the set we cannot choose.
hmm hmm yeah, yeah. Uh, Maybe it would be interesting to make a trolley problem out of this. Choose a
Sure,
number
sure,
from a regular die,
sure.
well, like you said, or kind of. Mm, okay, um, let's start with you really meant and with few examples that you explicitly said, were that okay? I'm asking you to pick a number between 1 and 6, and you can tell me that you are not able to choose a number 7. And I would say that, yeah, that is the case. You can only choose numbers between 1 and 6.
Hmm.
Then you might say, I want to choose 5.5. And then I would have to reconsider my question that did I ask you to pick an integer or did I set you to pick a number? And if you said 5.5, then I would say maybe, okay, you can only choose integers, or all right, now you can choose real numbers and your 5.5.
Is
That is a
within that
choice that
set.
you can
Yes,
make.
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I would have to be deliberate. I would have to be uh, as precise as I can when I'm trying to ask a question such as that one. And I would have to, in beforehand, figure out the limits of my question. I would really have to know and understand what I mean and what I'm asking, what language I'm using when I'm asking this question. Maybe I'll do it deliberately, that I don't define it very precisely. Maybe that's just the question that I ask, and maybe I'm just willing to see what you'll answer. Maybe you'll answer that you're not able to use number 0, but you maybe should be. You're not able to use negative numbers. I would argue that you were not supposed to. You could say that you are not able to use imaginary numbers, and I would really have to figure out if I want to include them, but maybe we could. And it would only be about precision, it would be about language, it would be about the limitations of the question. What is the, so to speak, truth that I would like to understand with this question that I'm asking?
Mm, 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 mm. I guess. Well, interesting for me. I'm trying to get at the most fundamental truths we can think of, knowing that we know of no fundamental truths, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so in my proposition, what I was asking was like, what's the one thing that we really in a set that we really can't choose one of the options, and that is to stop time. If in the set of time and note and
Yep,
stopping time, we can't
yep.
choose to stop time. That's the one of the fundamental things to our existence is time progresses, period,
But
by
be
all our
aware.
means, right? That's entropy, isn't
I,
it? Isn't that really what entropy
yes,
is? Time.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
yes.
I think that's a good answer, and I think that is a very interesting answer. Maybe you could answer that you don't want to give me a number, integer, real number, anything. You are just gonna stop time, and you would not be able to give me an answer because maybe all of the heat in the universe would be gone from that point on. And that would be an interesting answer. It was not out of the possibilities that I laid out.
Right, right.
It would be incredible, but I didn't rule it out.
Yeah. Mm.
You could you could do the thing that you would not answer me. We would somehow be kind of eternal like beings, and you would just wait out until the heat death of the universe. That's a possibility that
That's an
you could do.
option. That's an option in a set. That
Yep.
doesn't mean the
Yes.
set you were intending for.
Maybe.
Right, there you go. That's the
Maybe.
ambiguation there is everybody's sets are trying to align. Um,
Mm. Hmm.
Interesting? No. Yeah, that sent me off on some thoughts about feedback loops and sets and systems emergences and all these things we've been talking about recently, you know.
Mm.
Um,
Yes.
it even brings up some old baggage of involving myself in communities that were so invested in sets that sets were those or systems were those things that were fundamental. Like if you didn't abide by the system,
Mm.
then you're wrong, or
Mm.
you
Yes.
need to be
Yes.
aligned with the system.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. That is the. It goes more into the behavioral
Psychological,
psychology,
yeah.
psychology of tribes, and psychology of groups, group behavioral things.
Two major fields that I talk about are conformity bias and norm enforcement. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, um, so entropy, is it just time?
Um, that is a hard question. Um, basically, well, entropy is a word that we use when we usually describe change over time in physics,
Right. It's a
and
physical
that
law that
change
apply.
is,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's typically uh, more and more chaos. Like we have structures, but when we do nothing and we just let time go by, more and more chaos will be prevalent. These structures are just failing over time if we don't use energy in order to just retain them. That's the use of the word entropy in physics generally. We can also talk about entropy in the information systems in IT, for example. Entropy is a similar thing. It's usually mentioned in data sets that your integrity of your data might go bad, wrong, awry if you don't constantly check your integrity of your data to your previous data, for example. Then there are other uses for the word entropy, but the common theme is definitely time, like you said.
Hmm.
But is entropy only time? I'd say it is not. It is almost only time. And what I mean by that is that if we take this very simplistic approach here and we just define that if we do nothing, whatever we are talking about, if we do nothing and just wait, things are gonna fall apart. Our house that was made out of wood, it's gonna rot, it's gonna fall over. Our relationships that we have with our friends, if we don't talk to them, they are probably gonna just hopefully check upon us. But if we still don't do anything, uh, we are probably not gonna be friends with these people. And this is the thing that I mentioned before, the thing that I'm writing about, that these things take effort and our time and our energy, that we maintain these things, and we should be more aware of the things that are important to us and how we can use our time, effort, and energy maybe more efficiently, or just maybe how we could be more aware of these things. And these two things, I can just claim that this is the case, that abstractions, absolutes, and entropy take the joy out of our life. That's my claim. It is what I believe to be a kind of an obvious claim, but then I kind of continue, and I'm telling and I'm writing about the things that I think that what we can do about these things, how we can even approach these concepts, these ideas. And then the third one is something more. I'm just trying to, I'm still figuring out what I want to write about.
Mm.
Uh, Maybe something more positive of uh, how we can, how we can act, how we can behave, how we can analyze our social behaviors, how we can see our psychological group behaviors, and what we can take. What's the take? Um, how we can do better, and maybe something more. I'm not sure what I want to write about, but those are the things that I'm currently thinking about that I want to write about more.
Mm. 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 Interesting. I'm right along with you there, brother. I want to find the answer to that equation, that the resolution to that equation that says here's what we need to do to come to a cooperative, long-term planning, uh, basic human rights, uh, just for the sake of nature and the reason why well, even not even why we're here to begin with, but just that we are here and that we can do things
Mm,
with it.
yes.
um, I'm with you 100%. How the frick we make that actually work for some functional mechanism within society as we see it today, and
Mm,
their trajectories that we see coming, I have no idea how we make those two ends meet. Um,
mm,
yeah. I mean, I would like to hope that it's people like us coming together and trying to start a movement. Things can happen. You know, we talked at the chemistry level, right? There's this whole thing of we have these chemical parts we can put together and stir them in a moment. Boom, they flash into some other color, like immediately. Like a lot of
yeah.
people talk about the environment today in that sense that we could be reaching that cusp where the environment's just going to superimpose on itself and become this major catastrophe instantly. Or there's a lot of doomers that talk about those things and yada yada, and it's not that it's impossible, but you would think that there could be a human psychological revolution in those same means. If we can consider those things, we can consider psychological, uh, sociological revolution in the sense that we all start to realize, hey, we're just fucking humans on this planet trying to survive. We have these biological needs that need to be met in order for that to happen. The more educated people are, the more we seem to advance. The more socially equal we are, the less suffering is. Like all that seems logical to me. I don't know about you, but it seems logical to me. If we could have that kind of viral thing take over, that'd be great. But we've got a lot of, yeah, there's the counter aspects to that, but I don't want to go towards the negative side, as which I tend to do.
Mm,
Um, but that goes into a whole other bunch of things, right? Like free will. Like, if we had the free
yeah.
will, wouldn't we use our free will to make the most logical choices that made sense to perpetuate ourselves into the future, that reduce suffering, that that enhance our
Mm-hmm.
opportunities rather than enhancing these feedback loops that make certain people elitist and be able to take advantage and accumulate wealth. And you know I,
Maybe.
yeah, that I don't get it. Like even the free willist argument, I don't get, because what we tend to do with it is where I'm like, well, then what the fuck good is free will anyway? Then you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, I don't know. Go anywhere you want with any of that, man.
Yeah, well, I, I'm thinking about that. Um, this could be a great place to um, stop here for today,
Sure.
because this topic that I'm writing about is, like I said already earlier, this is like one of the few, not the last ones in the book, but maybe let's say the third or the fourth last one that I'm writing about. And the maybe two, maybe three chapters that are the last chapters in the book, they are only about how we can do better. What can we do?
Mm, mm,
How could we do something?
mm,
They are only about um, encouragement, optimism, and just happy things.
mm, mm.
Because I think we need that.
Yeah, well, I don't think we don't have them. I think those happy things
Okay.
exist. I mean, like, I think those things are
I
there, you know?
mm, I think we can have them.
That's what I mean. I think we can. Like, they exist. They're there. The options are there to be happy, right? And I'm not disagreeing with you. I
Mm,
think they are there. I think we could list them out. I wish we could make everybody know them and everybody understand them for why, for what, for where, where they come from. I think they exist. I don't
mm,
I don't know why we can't get there and why we have to go through this long history of pain to get there, which seems to be the most inevitable thing is this long history of pain to get there. I think we're on our way, you know.
yeah, I'm not convinced if this is the only way or these other imaginable futures are the only ways.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced. I think we're able to do better.
I hope so. That's all I can hope.
Mm,
I'm confronted with the opposition every moment, so I don't know how to react to that. Maybe you live in a different place than I do, which is probably very likely. Um, but
maybe,
I'm just confronted daily
but
with all the hate and all the disgust and all the reactionism and all the things that we've done over history, and we
well,
understand why they happen. You know. Um,
well, to kind of level with you there, yeah, the our everyday lives are definitely slightly different, but that is not what I'm about. That is not what I write in the way of things, or how I choose, or why I do the things that I do.
mm,
They are more of the result of the thing that I like to call kind of my uh, personal philosophy. There would be a lot to cover there,
sure.
but but the most relatable thing here uh, is that I always try to figure out the best outcome of situation. I always try to figure out the best parts of a system, the best behaviors of some 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 person in my life who just currently happens to be just maybe irrational, or just having not having their best moment in their lives.
Mm,
And
mm,
I'm just trying to figure out um, what they really mean. Why do they do the things that they do?
interesting.
And um, that is this whole thing. This whole life philosophy is just very prevalent
Mm,
in my life, and that's why that maybe that's why I'm just um, I don't know. I'm struggling to define it in words, but
that's all right.
That's what I do.
Yeah. I think that's what we're all doing. I think we're all trying to figure each other out, really. Um, just have so many different ways of going about it.
Mhm.
Um,
I guess.
yeah.
I guess.
Anyways, we're coming up on almost the 2 hour mark, and I think you
Mm.
astutely pointed out that maybe we should probably cut it off at some point. There are so
This
many,
would probably be the
there are
point.
so many tangents we could probably go down off on, and we could probably do lots of shows in the
Many,
future, hopefully.
many.
Um, but thank you for joining me. I appreciate it, and always appreciate
Likewise.
interaction and peace, love, understanding.
Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and end the recording.